Hello everyone, I am Storyteller. Thank you for visiting this peaceful place. I know you are looking for something soothing to help you fall asleep, and I am here to accompany you. If you enjoy, please give me a like and subscribe, and let me know where you are from. Thank you. General. My eyes fly open, like I'm waking from the dead. I start up, tossing aside the blanket that had been tangled around my legs. Something woke me up. I kick dirty laundry out of the way and shift my body to sitting up, head swimming. The sunlight is too bright in the room, and I find myself squinting around. When I lean forward, my phone tumbles off my lap, hits the edge of the coffee table, and clatters to the floor. I wince. Shh! I hiss at it. Why is that so loud? It echoes through the whole house. I look down at the dark phone, way far away on the floor, and can't convince my arms to swing down to grab it. What's the point? So I can open it up and do what? I breathe in, smelling the stale smell of the old blankets wrapped around me in a cocoon. And because there's nothing better to do, breathe out again. I can feel stiffness in my stomach from the surgery, the stitches stretching with my skin. I'm hungry. I should haul myself to my feet, drag myself into the kitchen, and find something to eat. I try to imagine doing all of that, standing up, moving, opening the fridge, getting out ingredients, putting things in a bowl. I swing my head to the right. There's my water bottle. I can drink some water. I try to force my brain to imagine telling my husband, when he gets home from work, what I did today. I drank some water from my water bottle. I breathed in, and I breathed back out. I decided to keep breathing in and keep breathing out, because it was easier than not doing that. I look down at my right arm, and because it would be embarrassing if I can't even manage that, I lift my arm, pick up my water bottle with fingers made of lead, and swallow some water. I have been back from the hospital almost a week after my ordeal, and somehow swallowing water is still the most I can manage. The TV is on, and there's a very serious news lady droning on. She's talking about the spread of the virus, and there's a map with splotches of red. I don't want to listen to this, to see the red slowly seeping into our state, getting closer and closer to us. I want it to be quiet. She's talking so loud, she needs to be quiet. But I don't know where the remote is, and I don't know if I can remember which buttons to press. I lean my head back and think about going back to sleep. But if I go back to sleep, at some point, I'll be woken up again. And then what? Once, I liked waking up in the morning, greeting the fresh world and whatever the day held. Now, after what happened, when my eyes open, I just wonder when I can shut them again. I don't have to feel hungry when I'm sleeping, and don't have to worry about finding something to eat. Thump. There's a thump on the porch steps. My eyes trace past the cluttered living room, past the TV, out the window, and as he moves, I catch a glimpse of him. There's a zombie climbing the porch steps. I start to stand. Sharp pain shoots through my stomach. I stiffen and pause. Is that pain new? I don't remember it from yesterday. I leverage with my arms, stiff and sore, and haul myself to my feet. I kick at one sock that's slowly coming off my foot and shuffle around the pile of laundry to get to the window. Surely I saw something else. Right? I'm sure I didn't see a zombie. The lady on the news is saying to be very, very careful. She's saying that the virus spreads not just from the bite, but that it's in the water supply too. She's impressing on us how dangerous it is, because everyone knows that zombies are incapable of hurting other zombies. That's why it's spreading so fast. I reach the window and stop. My arms are limp at my sides, and I can feel the lopsided bun on my head slowly falling out. There's something damp on my sweatshirt. What did I spill on my sweatshirt? Outside the window, I see him. He's climbing the porch steps. He's lifting one foot, and he's looking down at it. Then he's dropping it, thump, onto the step. He's lifting the next foot. He's looking at it, then he's dropping it. Thump. I take a step back. He's an old man, a stranger I don't know, with stringy gray hair and mottled green skin. The brass buttons on his moldy wool coat still shine in the sunlight. Looking at them makes one half of my head ping with pain. His fingers are curled into claws. His face is gnarled into a wince, his teeth slimy and yellowed. I turn away. Thump. He's a step closer. I turn again. On the floor of the living room is a bath towel. Oh, that's why my shirt is wet. I took a shower this morning. I start to move, pushing my feet forward. One, then the next, then the other again. I reach for the doorway to the kitchen. Like, if I can find it with my fingers, I can draw myself through the doorway faster than my feet can move me. Why are my feet so slow? I kick the bath towel out of the way. It's still damp, like my sweatshirt. What do? I say, careful to keep my voice low. I'm somewhat surprised to hear my own slurred speech. Who am I talking to? What do? What was the plan? Was there a plan? My brain tried to slog through the past day to remember the plan. I remember my husband this morning. He was leaving the house to go to work, I think. He must have been, because he was wearing his jacket and was standing in the doorway. And I was sitting on the couch, heavy-armed and tired. And he'd told me. What had he told me? The same thing he told me every day. Do something for yourself today. Just one thing. I must have said something back, because he smiled at whatever it was. One specific thing. I reached the kitchen doorway. That's why I took the shower. I remember now. That was something for myself. Thump. The newest thump was so much louder than the others that I grasped the kitchen doorway to keep myself from falling. A needle of pain wriggled through my abdomen. Quiet, I hiss toward the front porch. The zombie had made it up the steps and is at the door. I can see his shadow through the window as he leans heavily on the door. Thump. He hammers again. Shh, I say desperately. He needs to be quiet. Doesn't he know he needs to be quiet? I start to draw myself around the kitchen island, one hand over the other, guiding my stiff body. It's not as bright in here, and I can see better. My eyes fumble over old takeout containers and empty water bottles, and the sink piled high with dishes. Piled so high with dishes. Before I went to the hospital, I would have never let it get this bad. The gloves I usually use to wash the dishes are 1,000 miles away, down on the floor by several pairs of socks. Thump, crack, creak, creak. I stop, my hands placed on the kitchen counter, holding me still. I know that creak. It is a sound that washes over me every evening and fills me with relief. Why? Why do I love that sound? Now, it's the sound of the door opening as the zombie walks into my house. The zombie is walking into my house. No, oh no, I whisper and look around the dim kitchen. Where's my phone? It's in the living room. Thump, thump. Footsteps in the living room, and I hear a ragged, rancid breath. Suddenly, my hands let go of the kitchen counter, and I'm moving, my feet carrying me, careening through the house, stumbling, unmoored, out into the hall and across, and into the dark, dark bathroom. The door shuts behind me, and I blink once and again and again. Images of the spinning rooms spiraling in my vision before settling into the dark outline of the bathroom. Sink, toilet, empty toilet paper rolls, trash overflowing, and from down the hall, from the living room, I hear a voice. I can hear you in here. No one ever told me they talk. The zombie's voice drips under the bathroom door, snaking up my leg and draining into the pit of my stomach. His speech is slow and meticulous, his dead mouth trying to remember how to form words. You are breathing, the voice says. You are breathing so slow. Why are you breathing so slow? Why am I? I can't think. I can't make my brain think. All I can see when I close my eyes and remember is my husband standing in the doorway, looking at me. Why is he looking at me like that? Full of pity? Why is he speaking to me so slowly? Do one thing, he says, the words echoing in my sluggish mind. Do one specific thing, just for you. I did what he said. I look at the bathtub. I took a shower. A few water droplets are still dripping down from the shower head. I move forward, leaving the bathroom door. I hear heavy footsteps moving so slowly through the house behind me. I need to tell the zombie to walk quieter. He needs to be quiet. I hold out a hand, and I shiver as a cold water droplet splashes into my palm. I can barely see it in the dark, but my heart starts to sink, slowly, dropping from my chest down into my stomach, where slow, steady panic is building just under my ribcage. Why am I full of dread? Why does the water on my skin make me feel sick? Why can't I move fast enough to get to safety? My brain used to be smart and quick. Now it isn't. I'm never going to be quick again. I will find you. I jump as the voice sounds again. This time, closer. He's just across the hall in the kitchen. He's looking at the sink full of dirty dishes. I yank my hand out of the shower like it's a fire and start moving again, letting my feet stumble and rush. My hand fumbles on the doorknob and the door swings open, and I see a shadow cutting across the floor of the hall. I've lost a sock, and my feet stamp. 1, 2, 1, 2, down the hall. I pass a closed bedroom door on my way. Shh. I need to be quiet. Stop being so loud. Why are you running? The rasping voice grates through the house. I can feel you. You're tired. You want to sleep. I reach the basement stairs, and I stop. To my left, the back door of the house, leading out into the overgrown backyard, and the bright sunlight dappling on the grass and flowers. I think I can smell the fresh grass and perfume of the flowers, even from here. And to my right, the rickety basement stairs, leading down into moldy darkness. You don't want to escape. Where is there to escape to, anyway? My feet are stuck to the floor. I can't run. I look down at my hand, damp from the water from the shower, and I remember that I took that shower for me, and that when I was done, I sat on the toilet in my towel, shivering and shaking, and I didn't feel better, and my ears were ringing with screaming, and my head was aching, and my stomach was twisting, and I was tired. I told them at the hospital I was so tired, and they sent me home anyway. It's all I can think anymore, and no amount of warm showers make me feel better. Why not? I can't seem to feel better. I'm tired. I turn away from the back door, and my feet drop onto the basement steps. I hear him behind me. Thump, thump. He's following. My feet hit the basement steps. Thump, thump. He's following. I reach out, raking my fingers along the concrete walls, balancing my stumbling legs and feet. Where are my feet? Where did I leave them? Oh, they're here. Right underneath me. I reach the cold floor of the basement and step over a puddle at the base of the steps. And I pass the light switch on the wall. I can see from the pale light that shines in through the small windows. Bins and boxes piled up where I left them, half open and spilling their contents on the floor. That was from before, when I cared about organization and neatness. Now, I can't even look at them. That's right, the croaking voice says. It's coming from the top of the stairs. It's grinding down the wood steps and splashing onto the concrete floor. Go down into your grave. Go down to drown alone. You do not want to walk back up again. My fingers trail along the dusty top of a box, then the edge of a bookshelf loaded with cans of beans and tomatoes and vegetables. My glazed eyes trail over the rows of cans, and I have to blink myself awake. I used to be different. I used to be awake. After what happened, whatever else there is, it's like I'm gone. I have to press a hand to my stomach, holding in my stitches and my guts even to walk. I miss the person I used to be. My feet shuffle along, 1 foot warm, 1 foot cold, 1 sock on, 1 sock off. I weave my way through the old bikes and laundry baskets to where the washer and dryer are crouching in the corner. I can hear his loud feet on the steps. One thing, one specific thing, just for me. I want to scream, to fill my lungs and holler as loud as I can, but instead it comes out as barely a whisper. Be quiet, I hiss. You need to be quiet. My hands rest, 1 on the washer, 1 on the dryer. I pause. I need to remember how to use my knees. I look down, and I remember, and bend, twisting at the waist, and bending my creaking knees all the way down until I'm on the floor. It's damp down here, water trickling in through the cinder blocks and oozing through the cracks in the floor. I place 1 hand on the cold floor, the water stinging my fingers with how cold it is. I reach behind me with the other hand. He's on his way down the steps. The steady thump, thump, thump echoing through the house. He's going faster because he knows. He knows why I came down here. Shh! Behind me, a dial on a metal safe clicks. Thump, thump, then splash. He reaches the puddle at the bottom of the stairs, and my eyes slowly look up, He's tall and broad-shouldered, and I can see, in the dim light, the glint of his yellow teeth gnashing together. His eyes narrow when he sees me. Click, click, the dial behind me. "There you are," he says, and he's moving, his hands bumping into dusty boxes and canned goods. I'm still crouching, and I can feel the water seeping into my sweatpants. I should be shivering, but I'm not. It feels almost warm. Warm, like blood, like my blood, pumping through me, swift and sure. "Here you are," he says. The safe clicks open, and my hand closes over something familiar and solid. "You're hiding down here to be found," he says, an ugly smile curling his gray lips. I'm holding the familiar object in my hand, and his eyes land on it. The smile widens, his teeth grinding together, spit dripping out of his mouth and onto his moldy coat. I raise a shaking hand. I pull in breath, and I let it out again. "You can't do that," he says, his mouth fumbling over the words, spitting them out one at a time. He raises a crooked finger with a broken, bloody nail, pointing toward the ceiling and the floor above us. "If you do that, you won't be quiet. Don't you want to be quiet?" I do want to be quiet. I want to curl up down here in the warm water and sleep, where I can't feel hungry, and my stomach and hips and back don't hurt, where my head doesn't ache. He must see my shoulders sag, because he takes a shuddering step forward. "You came down here to die." "No," I say, and my voice is louder than it should be. "One specific thing, just for me." I can feel my hands again as they raise the gun I'd pulled from the safe and level it at the zombie. His old, dead eyes don't change or look alarmed. I'm here because I want to live. Bang. Thump. Upstairs, in the bedroom I had skipped, suddenly startled awake, my newborn baby starts to cry. I look at the rows of canned goods, vegetables and beans and soup. I think it's time to cook some lunch. The Christmas ween. A frozen blanket of ice glazed the roads on Fern Street as the Wallace family headed home from a busy day of shopping. The houses were adorned with multicolored lights, and blow-up decorations were as far as the eye could see. Every door had a festive wreath to showcase the spirit of the season, and carolers sang songs of merry for all to hear. Yes, my friends, it was Christmas Eve once again, a time when boys and girls dream of toys and candy, and parents wish for peace on earth. Even grandparents put their worries away and enjoy watching their loved ones celebrate the traditions they have passed down through the years. There was no doubt about it. The holidays have always brought joy to the entire world. As John Wallace pulled into the driveway, he noticed his neighbor, Ben Foster, hanging his Christmas lights. He parked his blue, reindeer-decorated Subaru, looked at his wife, Martha, and said, It's a little late to be hanging lights, isn't it? Martha took a sip of her hot chocolate and rasped. Oh, give him a break. Ben's getting older, and ever since his wife, Alice, passed away a few years ago, he hasn't been the same. John lifted his brow and shrugged. Yeah, but all things considered, don't you think it's a little counterproductive? He looked at Ben and continued. I mean, after Christmas, all this stuff has to come down. So what's the point? He likes to be included, Martha said. Alice used to decorate that house every year, so I suppose he wants to honor her memory. Humph, John huffed. He looked in the back seat to see his 12-year-old daughter, Sarah, glued to her phone. Hey, kiddo, we're home. You want to go over and help Ben put up his lights? Sarah removed her earbuds and snapped. What? Do you wanna? I heard what you said, Dad. Sarah's words cut deeply. Why should I do that? Martha put her hot beverage in the cup holder and spoke firmly. Sarah, we don't need that attitude right now. It's Christmas, so why don't you lend some good cheer and help our neighbor? We have to put these groceries away anyway. You can watch your TikTok videos later. Sarah ruffled her face, pinched her lips together, and fired, Fine. John widened his eyes as Sarah exploded from the car. Be good, he said. It's the holidays. The cool air was comforting because Sarah's insides were boiling. She unzipped her pink jacket and removed her black toboggan snow hat. She reached up, parted her brown hair behind her ears, and marched across the snow. Her unicorn boots sparkled in the moonlight, which matched her black leggings. Martha and John gathered their bounty and smiled as their little girl approached Ben. They were glad to see Sarah heed their words because they had some presents to hide, and the distraction was a welcomed surprise. I'm glad to see her do something besides messing with her phone, John said. She's been so distant lately. Yeah, replied Martha. Teens will be teens. She gave Sarah a quick wave and entered the house. Hi, Mr. Foster, Sarah greeted with a quick flutter. Ben was straggling the ladder near his front porch and snapped in another staple to a strand of lights. He nearly fell off when he heard Sarah's voice. When he regained his footing, he looked down and uttered, Oh, you startled me, little one. Sarah looked up and said, Do you need help? My parents sent me over. He cleared his throat, pointed to a box on his porch, and muttered, Well, darling, you could hand me those other lights in that box. It sure would help these old legs of mine. All right, moaned Sarah. She grabbed the lights and noticed a red machine about the size of a lawnmower resting by the sidewalk. She glared at the contraption for a few moments before Ben's voice brought her back to reality. Don't mind that, sweetie, he said. That's just the snowblower. He lowered his hand and grinned. How about those lights? Sarah ran over to the ladder and reached as high as she could until Ben grasped the lights. She watched as he stapled one strand at a time with his shaky hands. "This is going to take all night." The access line with the plug dangled beside Sarah like a slithering snake, and she pulled out her phone and began recording. "What are you doing?" Ben asked. Sarah sighed. "I'm recording this moment so I can upload it to my TikTok channel later." She lowered her voice and mumbled, "My friends will be so excited to see how boring my life is." "What's Tiki Talk?" Sarah wrinkled her eyebrows. "Really? Don't worry about it. It's just a social media thing." "Ha! Don't worry," said Ben. "I know all about social media. I watch the news all the time." He continued stapling the lights and began humming jingle bells. The access wire kept creeping along and got tangled around Sarah's boots. She stumbled a bit, but didn't fall. Once again, her attention turned to the snowblower. She grabbed the cord and placed the end of it in the machine's blades. "This will show him not to trip me again. This thing should strip all those lights, and then I can go home." She saw a lever on the control panel that said "on" and pulled it. With a soft hum, the blades engaged, and the loose wire was pulled into the machine. Sarah stepped back and positioned her phone to capture all the chaos. Ben whipped his head like a startled rodent and yelled, "Turn that off!" His words were cut short as the looped wire around his neck became taut and flung him off the ladder. His body hung in the air while the snowblower pulled against the stapled lights. He tried to break free, but his old hands didn't have the strength. He gasped for air, but none would fill his lungs. Within seconds, all the life in Ben's writhing body ceased, and his eyes grew cold. "Oh, shit," Sarah gasped, turning off the snowblower. "That was awesome." Later that night, Sarah awoke to flashing red and blue lights shining on her ceiling. And they were not Christmas lights. The police were on the scene, and Sarah watched through her bedroom window as the paramedics took Ben away in a black body bag. "Sarah," 1,000 snakes slithered down Sarah's spine when she heard her mother's cry. She ran down the stairs as fast as her little legs would carry her, and found her mom and dad sitting at the kitchen table. "Honey," John said with a long, drawn-out tone, "you were with Ben this evening. Did you notice anything strange?" Sarah clasped her hands behind her back and mumbled, "No. Are you sure, sweetheart?" Martha asked with tear-filled eyes. "Well," Sarah started, and then paused to scrunch her lips. "I may have done something naughty." She walked closer to the table and leaned against the marbled countertop. John stood up, placed his hand on Sarah's shoulder, and asked, "What did you do?" Sarah fumbled for the right words, but couldn't find them, so she turned her back. "It's all right," John said, looking at Martha. "If you had something to do with what happened tonight, we have to tell the police." "He's right, dear. Martha said. Sarah wrinkled her forehead, clenched her jaw, grabbed a sharp blade from the knife block that was right in front of her, turned, and slashed her father's throat. A thick stream of blood painted Sarah's pink unicorn pajamas, and her mother screamed. John grabbed his severed neck, fell to the floor, and choked on his own blood. "No!" Martha screamed. "What did you do?" Martha ran to John and held him in her arms as he breathed his last breath. When she looked at Sarah through bloodshot eyes, the last thing she saw was the glimmering blade as it penetrated her skull. The blade bit strong and true, and as it pierced Martha's brain, visions of her life flashed by like lightning strikes. And then darkness took her. Sarah gripped the knife and yanked it out of her mother's head. A weary smile crept upon her face as she turned to her phone that she had placed on the countertop earlier. TikTok is gonna love this. Suddenly, Sarah heard footsteps coming from the living room. She grew silent and heard the faint sound of bells jingling in the distance. Out of curiosity, Sarah tiptoed out of the kitchen and peeked around the wall to see a white-bearded man wearing a red suit with black boots putting presents underneath the tree. "Santa?" gasped Sarah. The jolly man turned and bellowed, "Ho, ho, ho!" Sarah ran towards him with the knife held high, and his tone quickly changed. "Ho, ho, ho, oh, no." He grabbed her arm and took the knife away. "Put that away. It's Christmas." "No, you big fat bully," Sarah yelled. "Let me go." Santa looked at Sarah's blood-soaked pajamas and said, "Something tells me you've been a naughty girl this year. I knew I should have checked that list twice. I guess I'm getting a little lazy. I should have listened to Mrs. Claus. She's always right. What did you do, little girl?" "I'm not telling you," Sarah snapped. He held Sarah's arm and walked into the kitchen, where he discovered the cold bodies of her parents. "Oh, no. You have been a bad girl. What should I do with you?" "Well, this is Christmas, and I think you should come with me until I fly to the police station. You must answer for this crime." "No!" Sarah yelled. "You can't make me do anything." "Ho, ho, ho. I'm Santa Claus, and I will do what's best for you." He grabbed Sarah's arm a little tighter, placed a finger on his nose, and they disappeared up the chimney in a puff of magic smoke. They appeared in Santa's sleigh on the roof, and with a quick dash, they were off flying with his 9 reindeer: Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen, and Rudolph. Sarah pulled out her phone and pressed the record button. "No one is going to believe this." They flew around for a few minutes before landing on the next roof, and Santa quickly delivered his gifts. When he emerged from the chimney, Sarah folded her arms and scoffed. "I thought you were taking me to jail. Ho. Ho. Ho," huffed Santa. "I plan on doing just that after I make a few more deliveries." He laughed, and Sarah couldn't believe that his belly did indeed shake like a bowl full of jelly. It is Christmas, after all, and time is of the essence. He grabbed the reins and said, "Now, hold tight. Here we go. Ho," like a twinkle from a Christmas light. They were off again, soaring through the clouds. Sarah expected to feel the freezing temperatures, but was toasty warm in the sleigh. Santa's red gift bag was neatly tucked in the back seat, and Sarah decided to have a peek. She gave Santa a double take to make sure he wasn't watching her, and untied the thick golden rope around his bag. She raised her eyebrows when a blinding light began to show itself through the opening. The warmth and power caressed her soul. It was a strange feeling. What is this? Ho, ho, ho. It's the Christmas spirit of love, Santa said with a warm smile. It's something that you have closed your heart to. He turned and watched Sarah close the sack. Her droopy eyes and frown showed the beginnings of sorrow. "I think people sometimes forget that I know all and see all. It's so annoying. Ho, ho." Santa reached up and patted his white, fluffy beard and continued, "What you need to understand is that while this world is filled with hate, there is also hope. Hope to overcome hardship and faith to do good. I believe you have that warmth in your heart, and all you need to do is admit your wrongdoings and let the healing begin. Everyone can change." No words came from Sarah. She sat stone-faced and seemed lost in deep thought. Santa nodded and steered his beloved reindeer to the next house. "Not to worry, Sarah. Forgiveness will always be there for you when you want to accept it." As Santa landed on the snow-covered roof, he stood next to the chimney with his red sack of presents and gave Sarah another cheerful look. "I won't be long. Our next stop will be the police station, and then your healing can begin. Ho, ho. Sit tight. I'll be right back." He touched his nose, transformed into a dazzling, colorful mist, and swooped down the chimney. He filled the stockings hanging by the fireplace with candy and doodads, and placed a handful of presents under the sparkling tree. A plateful of peanut butter cookies caught his eye before leaving. "Oh, my favorite," he beamed. "How can I say no? Ho, ho." Santa ate every last crumb and drank the full glass of milk that was left for him. Most people believed that he preferred chocolate chip cookies, but the savory taste of peanut butter was his weakness. Time was getting on, and Santa snorted his way back up the chimney. When he emerged from the smoky funnel, he fell to his knees. and his rosy face turned red. The snow-covered roof was painted blood red, and the reindeer were gathered in a circle, snooting and grunting. As the reindeer parted, Santa saw Sarah sitting on Rudolph's mutilated carcass, eating his red nose. A slight trickle of bright red ichor flowed down her chin. "It does taste like a cherry." Santa rose with a clatter and yanked Sarah off of Rudolph. "What have you done?" His face shook like a bowl full of molded pudding. "I thought you could change. I believed you had some good in your heart." "Ack!" His words were cut short when Sarah quickly slashed his throat with the knife she found in the front seat of the sleigh. Santa should have left it at Sarah's house when he took it from her. But mistakes are habitual. Santa's white, fluffy beard soaked up the blood like a thick towel and turned crimson. His jolly-filled eyes twinkled and rolled back into his head, where visions of Christmas pasts grew dark. His jingle bell knees quivered and gave out, and he collapsed in front of Sarah like a deflated blow-up decoration. Sarah's eyes danced in the bloodshed twilight, and she laughed with a bubbly voice. "Ha, ha, ha, ho. Merry Christmas, you fat bastard. You thought you knew what I needed? Well, screw you." She grabbed her recording phone that was positioned on the sleigh, held it up, and said, "To all my TikTok followers and the non-believers, the spirit of Christmas can be killed. That's how you do it, my friends." Sarah stopped recording and noticed the goosebumps forming on her slender arms. Jack Frost was wickedly biting into her bones as the warmth of the Christmas magic faded. Her pink, blood-covered unicorn pajamas were no match for the freezing temperatures, so she ran over to Santa's rotting corpse, removed his heavy red coat, and put it on. The coat was too big for her small frame, but in an instant, Sarah's insides stopped quivering, and a circle of warm, magic dust swirled around her. All at once, the jacket adjusted itself to fit her body perfectly, and Sarah felt a power that only dreams could bring. She heard children's voices and saw their dreams as they slept. Sarah automatically knew who was good and who was bad. There was an overwhelming sense of joy, and she swatted it down with a gust of hatred. Well, who would have thought? Sarah watched as the reindeer instantly took their place by the sleigh, and Prancer gave her a look that would kill most people. "What?" she asked, shrugging her shoulders. "I've always been the love of my own life, and it's only fitting that I become the Queen of Christmas." Sarah knew exactly what to do. Christmas must go on. There was no question about that. But what form would it take? She pulled out her phone again, hit the live stream button on TikTok, and laughed as the number of viewers crossed the billions. With the device held high to capture the perfect angle, Sarah smiled a devilish grin and rejoiced. It's time to spread some Christmas fear. 28 Sleighs Later. Above the laughter and Christmas music, the bang against the door came. Thump, thump, thumped. Paul Reyes sighed. He patted his wife's hand and pushed his chair away from the table. Don't worry, love. I've got this one. Rosemary frowned at him. But everybody's here. Who could it be? He stopped. Rose had framed the doorbell with tinsel. You couldn't miss it. It would take a brain-dead person to knock instead of ringing. He shrugged. Carolers or something. I'll give 'em a quid and tell 'em to bugger off. A round of laughter rippled around the table. The playlist swapped over to Wham's Last Christmas. Outside in the front hall, the door shuddered again. Thump, thump, thump. It banged hard enough to make the door vibrate in its frame. Annoyance flickered in his mind. The nerve of some of these charity-begging types. He wasn't one to sniff at donations, but give a man ample time to get up. And don't knock his door down like you're the wolf versus the 3 little pigs. He hurried along in his slippers. I'm coming, hold your horses. But still, the banging continued. Thump, thump, thump. The little panes of glass at the top of the door vibrated and threatened to shatter. The figure of a man swayed beyond, blurry and dark. Paul gritted his teeth. He'd have some stern words for whoever it was. It didn't matter what good cause they were raising money for. This behavior was downright rude. He slid the chain off and yanked the door open. Oh, for goodness sake, what's your prob? The man behind the door barged through, snarling and screeching. He wore a parka coat with its fur-ringed hood raised. It framed his mess of a face. He had blood smeared all across his skin, and his nose was missing. A window shattered somewhere in the back of the house, and a woman shrieked. Paul's stomach dropped, and he screamed. He grappled with the invader and grabbed a hold of his shoulders. What? He grunted. Let go of me. The man clawed at Paul's shirt. He leaned forward and snapped his teeth. His breath was rotten, and he had bits of ragged meat caught between his teeth. He snarled like a wildcat, and his eyes were white, except for tiny pinpricks of blackness in the center. He flinched backwards from the bites. It was almost as if the maniac wanted to bite his nose off, too, as revenge for losing his own. Whatever was wrong with him, drugs, he guessed. He was dangerous, and Paul had to stop him. Paul grabbed the nearest thing from the shelf on the wall, an animatronic snowman. He smacked the madman across the face with it. Jingle Bell Rock played from the crappy speakers, and the snowman started to boogie. Paul hit the man with it again and again. Get out! Get out! The man recoiled from each blow of the rubber decoration. He snarled and shrieked, backing away through the front door as Paul struck him. At some point, something mechanical cracked inside the snowman. The song came out slurred and slow. Jack Frost danced slower. One arm snapped off, and his head dented inwards. Blood smeared across his white body. Adrenaline surged through Paul's veins, reminding him of how it felt to be a young man. He became aware of his battle cry as he fought the mauled lunatic out of his home. With the noseless man wobbling on the threshold, Paul landed a kick into the guy's gut. "And stay out!" he roared. The man went sprawling backwards over the Reyes' front steps. He clattered into a heap at the foot of their driveway. At the top of the driveway staggered a group of people. 2 men and 4 women. Each had various ghastly wounds, like the noseless assailant. A cheek torn open here, an eye gouged out there. Intestines spilt out of one woman's belly and trailed behind her like a bridal train. Across his small patch of lawn in front of the lounge windows, a woman with one arm shambled towards him. Paul's nerves turned to liquid and his legs to jelly. He whimpered and felt his bladder threaten to release. He scrambled for the door, missed, found the handle, and slammed it shut. With shaking hands, he slid the chain back across, his fingers slaked with gore. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," he whispered to himself. Immediately, the door began to bang again, and so did the windows looking into the lounge. And the screams from the back of the house continued, high-pitched and terrified. Goose flesh rippled up all over Paul's body. These nutcases had surrounded the house. He had no idea what they wanted, but he guessed it wasn't a cup of cocoa. He pushed off from the vibrating door and strode towards the sound of the commotion. He brandished his decoration/weapon. Rose, in the kitchen, some of the attackers had smashed their way through the windows. The glass sliced their forearms to ribbons, but they didn't care. They were trying to pull Rose out by her hair. She shrieked and kicked and batted at the hands to no avail. Several of their guests stood by and watched, their faces drawn in a rictus of shock. They still held their alcoholic beverages. Sean from next door had gone white, and his beer was tipping and spilling on the kitchen tiles. Paul froze. Rose had always argued about getting double glazing, but he'd deferred. He now wished he'd listened to his wife. How long until the front windows, looking out onto the lawn, shattered under the strain? He slapped himself across the face and raced into the fray, swinging Frosty for all his worth. He smacked at the hands that snaked through the glass over and over again. "Get off my wife, you damn hooligans." That broke the paralysis spell over the others. The kitchen became a flurry of activity as people dropped drinks and grabbed a hold of Rose. Gail Clark yanked on Rose's feet, pulling her back into the house. In his vest and tie combo, Sean lobbed his pint glass through the window with a violent yell. The claws clutching Rose weakened enough for her to break away. Rosemary collapsed to the floor, sobbing. She held her hands to the blotchy red patches of yanked-out hair. Paul's mind was a flurrying snowstorm of thought. He stood in the kitchen, chest heaving. He stared out at the people gathered in his back garden. "Zombies," he said, not quite believing himself. "They're goddamn zombies." The swaying figures closed in on the house. Bangs and clangs echoed from the front. The dim winter light faded as the bodies blocked out the windows. They moaned in a chorus of the dead, their bloodied hands slapping against the four walls. Someone asked, "What do we do, Paul?" I don't," a woman screeched. "They're coming down the fireplace." An ice shard speared through Paul's core, and the world seemed to slow. "Sweet baby Jesus," he mumbled. An enormous thud shook the foundations of the house. The survivors staggered to the walls for support. Paul shook his head clear. He tightened his grip on Frosty and ran for the lounge. He skidded to a halt as a cloud of coal dust settled across the room, coating the furniture and the tree. The hell? The smog cleared to reveal a massive man in a red and white suit. He kneeled, fists on either side, like the Terminator from that Schwarzenegger flick. A large brown sack slung over his shoulder. He had heavy-duty black boots, and a Santa hat clung to his head. Paul's insides shriveled. He'd fought off the one at the door because they'd been roughly the same size. But this one? No chance. He tried to speak, but found that all the spit had evaporated from his mouth. Only a tiny mouse-like squeak came from his vocal cords. The giant looked up. His eyes sparkled above two rosy cheeks. The orbs looked normal. No cataractic whiteness, narrowing to a black pinprick. A big, thick, white, bushy beard sprouted from his face. Paul dropped the damaged Frosty, which bounced to the laminate wooden floor. His head spun like he'd taken a right hook to the dome. "Santa?" Paul whimpered. Santa smiled, but the smile was fleeting. "Yes, Paul, it is me. Do not be afraid." He glanced at the window, which showed the growing horde pressing against it. "But you should be afraid of those naughty boys and girls." Paul's heart hammered high up in his chest, like a hummingbird trapped in his torso. His brain kept rifling through facts and thoughts, as if to make sense of it all. His old thinker kept coming up short. It threw its cards in the air, and searched through the rubble again. "What?" He licked his lips. "What do we do?" Santa grinned and stood up. He was 8 feet tall and towered over Paul and the others. If he were any taller, he wouldn't be able to stand upright in this house. He chuckled a deep, throaty laugh. "Ho, ho, ho." It rumbled through the earth like a bear's growl. Santa unslung his sack and upended it onto the living room floor. Machetes, blades, baseball bats, cricket bats, axes and chainsaws, swords and knives, flamethrowers and guns, even a grenade, and armor. It looked like police riot gear, except it had the symbol of a snowflake. "I have brought you well-behaved children, some toys to play with." Paul regained some of his lost nerve at the sight of the armory. With this elf-like giant on their side, they could turn the tides of battle. He bent down and picked up a chainsaw. "Groovy," Santa bowed. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have a few 100,000 more homes to equip for the coming siege." Out beyond the front window, a reindeer with a red nose was fighting off zombies with its antlers. It was winning. Paul felt like someone had punched the wind out of him. His eyes darted from Santa to the fireplace. "You mean you won't stay? Won't stay and fight? We won't last without you. I am afraid there are others who need me." Santa raised one gloved finger. "Remember, Paul, jealousy and greed are very naughty." He gestured to the treasure hoard on the ground. "I brought you these because you have all been good. Let us keep it that way. Will you at least tell us why this is happening?" Santa narrowed his eyes. "When there is no more room in ho-ho hell, the dead will walk the earth." And with that, he vanished back up the chimney in the blink of an eye. In the background, the glass front window started to crack. A lightning bolt fault line zigzagged. Paul revved the chainsaw and beckoned his friends and family. "Let's do this. Everyone, arm yourselves. Rose, stay behind me. Put some armor on." Gail picked up a spear and donned a helmet. She pulled up alongside Paul and jabbed at the air between them and the fracturing window. A flurry of movement in the distance showed that Rudolph was still fending off the zombies. Gail screeched. "Jesus is the only zombie we allow this time of year." Paul took the lead and strode forward, chainsaw in front like a jouster. Sean drew alongside with a shotgun. He pumped it, and 2 red shells bounced to the Reyes' rug. Sean had a steely look in his eyes that Paul had never seen before. He didn't even know the man could handle a gun. "The only thing we should be eating is turkey." The window gave way, and the zombies flooded in. Paul raised the growling chainsaw and went to battle. Rest in peace on earth. AKA-O. You're awake. bit sooner than expected, but oh well, must have got the strength wrong. I'm not exactly experienced with using chloroform, only tried it twice so far, and once was on myself. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but how else was I supposed to see if it worked? Amazed it did, to be honest. Thought it was just a movie thing, but it gave me the best sleep I've had in years. Kenji, too. Doesn't look like it did much for you. You were only out for about 3 hours. Your eyes look like shit. Crusty and bloodshot. Lucky for you, she won't care. It'll probably excite her more. Maybe it's because you're so fit. I mean, this body of yours is impressive. Is this what you call a six-pack? And what's with the arms? How did they get that big? Wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Couldn't tell in the baggy shirt and pants they make you wear. What's a ripped dude like you doing working for a second-rate pizza shop in the middle of nowhere anyway? Shouldn't you be a model or something? Gonna make me look bad, man, when she gets a load of you. I'm going to have to stick to less impressive specimens, like Kenji, the tourist. Skinny arms, you know, bird-like chest. I didn't feel so bad about my weight compared to him. But bodies like yours give me a complex. Oh, don't worry. I know it's a bit off-putting, waking up naked, tied to a chair in the company of a male. It's fine. I'm completely straight. You don't have to worry or be embarrassed. Not that you ever are, I bet. Why would you be? You're a beast. And I don't want this to sound like sour grapes or anything. But why is your thing so huge? I thought that was also a movie thing. Different kind of movie. But damn. So much for all things being created equal. She'll probably get a kick out of that. Meal, not a snack, right? I'd be worried about it if I thought she was the shallow type. But she's not. This is only the second time we've done this. But I know she doesn't care about stuff like that. And even if she did, what could I do? I'm not doing this because I want to. I have to, because I love her. And if I can't give her what she needs, it's my duty to find someone who can. Gotta keep your girl happy, right? And she really enjoyed herself with Kenji, even if he was a bit weedy. Took her time with him too. It was amazing to watch. I mean, it was sickening too, but I couldn't look away. And as long as she was getting what she needed, I was happy. You should have seen her when she was done. She was glowing and grateful. I'm the one she spent the night with after. It was so good. Being in bed with her, feeling her body next to mine, caressing her hair, having sex, made the sacrifice worthwhile. Made me want to do it again. And that's where you come in. Delivering a pizza to a paddy field farm at the top of Akiota Valley isn't the only useful task you're going to perform today. And What are you looking at? Oh, sorry. Should have put that out of sight. Yeah, it's a ball gag. But don't worry. Like I said, I'm straight. I haven't kidnapped you for some weird sex game. The gag is for her. My girl. Yeah, I know. That sounds kinky. And I suppose it is. But not in the way you think. It's just, there are things I can't give her. Or things I can't get from her. So after she's indulged, after she's finished, unfortunately she has to wear that gag to be with me. But never mind all that. That's personal. I need to get on with the messy part of the proceedings. I want to make sure she enjoys her time with you. So it needs to be just the way she likes it. So you're going to have to forgive me for what comes next. Shit. Look at the time. She'll be up soon. And she's going to be starving. She's a different person when she's hungry. You'll see when you meet her. Not going to lie, it's not a pretty sight. Takes some getting used to. But once she's eaten, well, it's a different story. She's an absolute angel then. Divine. Hey, why are you starting to struggle? Oh, I get it. You're getting the picture. Yeah. Kenji figured it out too. He completely lost it, though. You're much more composed. Testing the ropes, shifting around. Chair is bolted to the floor, in case you can't tell. You can't get out. Now stop. No point trying to shout. Sounds ridiculous through the gag, and nobody's going to hear you. This is my grandmother's house, and it really is in the middle of nowhere. You must have noticed that on your way here, wondering how the fuck you were going to get away with delivering a cold pizza. Town is pretty deserted, right? Total dump. Never thought I'd end up stuck on a farm in the backwoods of Hiroshima. But that's my mother for you. Excels at ruining my life. Though, having said that, if she hadn't made me come here to look after Oba-chan, I never would have found my true love. No, there's no point staring at the ceiling either. Dear old Oba-chan isn't going to stick her head through and ask if you'd like a cup of sake. No. For one thing, the stroke robbed her of the ability to get around on her own, and for another, she'd be more likely to snap at you for making noise. Then roll out a list of damn chores. Tidy the kitchen, cut some wood, build a fire, feed the chickens, muck out the pigs, clean the bathroom. Or she'd tell you she needed the bedpan again. Or worse, a cleanup of the passage between her legs. So disgusting. Can't believe I put up with that for 2 months. You're honestly lucky you don't have to listen to it, man. Or smell it. We're both lucky she's not here anymore. So don't waste your time making a fuss. Until Aka gets here, we're alone. Now, I gotta head outside for a bit. Don't hurt yourself trying to escape. Those knots are good, trust me. I was a scout for years, not to mention a band geek and shogi player. My mother stuck me in as many after-school clubs as she could, so she didn't have to spend any time with me. You know how it is, right? Have a kid to get away, then the kid gets in the way. Anyway, back in a minute. Sorry about that. Didn't realize how heavy this would be. Filled it up too much, I think. Oh, relax. Your eyeballs look like they're going to pop out of your head. I know how it looks, but this is not for you. Trust me, you're not going to be left to decompose in a rusty metal barrel in a rice field. It's like the sex thing. You've got me all wrong. I'm not a murderous pervert. I'm 17, for fuck's sake. I listen to baby metal and play Fortnite. I'm a nerd, a fat geek with no friends. Well, I used to be. Until I met Akka. Now I have more than a friend. Someone I care about, who appreciates me for who I am, not how I look. I'm sure you don't understand how rare that is. How could you? Mr. Adonis. Okay. Look, I apologize in advance for how this is going to smell, and oh yeah, there we go. Whoa, that's worse than I expected. Maybe I should have left the lid off. Fuck. Thought I was going to throw up for a second there. Okay, gloves on for this. You okay? Look a little green. Probably for the best you have that gag on. Or maybe that's making it worse. I don't know. I'll be quick anyway. It's just a big vat of pig shit, chicken shit, and basic sludge from the rice fields. Filth, right? I'm sorry, but when we talk about kinks, I guess this is the biggie. For Akka, I mean. Not me. Hell no, I'm not into this shit. Pardon the pun. Really does it for her, though. She loves it. She needs it. And like I said, I can't give it to her. Not like this. Not with added sweat and bodily excretions. And, yeah, sorry about that also. But you're going to be excreting a lot. Don't worry. I've seen it all before. It's fine. AKA, we'll clean it up. And honestly, once she's on top of you, you're not going to care what comes out. This is really disgusting. I apologize. I'm just going to keep dumping it on, not going to rub it in anywhere. Didn't have to do this with Oba-chan or Kenji. Oba-chan supplied her own filth. The filth I left her lying in for days. Just couldn't bring myself to clean her anymore. And I was busy getting to know Akka, so, you know. And Kenji got filthy in the fields. Spotted him out there taking photos of our resident ibis. Hadn't really started looking for anyone at that stage. But when I saw him there, all on his own, I just decided to give it a go. Soaked a rag in chloroform and went out to be friendly. Not sure what tipped him off. Something was up, but he saw it coming before it hit his face. and he made a run for it. Didn't get far. Fields are too marshy to run in. Went down hard and got covered in muck. So that was enough. No additional basting needed. Ha. Sorry. I know it's not funny. I know this smells and feels awful. But I think I'm done. Now I just need to run a trail of it from you to the bathroom. It's almost 9. She'll be waking up in there now, making her way out of the tub of, I feel like I should explain. I didn't with Kenji, and he almost ripped his arms to get free when Aka came out. I had to hold him still until she got going. Would rather not have to do that with you. So maybe if I prepare you, that will help. Was fine with Oba-chan. Apart from her lack of mobility, she knew all about Aka. It wasn't a surprise to her at all. Of course she knew her. She's the one who kept her locked in the bathroom all these years. She deserved what she got. My mother deserves it too. She knew. She helped. And then lying to me about what I saw that first time I met her. Telling me it was my imagination, and I didn't really see an emaciated, corpse-like girl thrashing around on the wet room floor, licking up grime. I was only 7, but I could have helped. I could have done something, maybe gotten her out. But my mother didn't bring me back after that. Didn't want to ever come back at all. But then Oba-chan had her stroke, and she had no choice. Well, she did. She had me. Fuck my mother, man, you know. Dropping me off to look after the old bitch, ruining my summer. She said I had to do it because she couldn't get out of her work trip to France. Potential new client, big project, huge for the company, the usual bullshit. I thought it was because she didn't want to have to take care of the old bat, because she hated her or was afraid of her. I never knew which. Now I know it had more to do with Aka. She didn't want to deal with her either, which makes her more of a selfish bitch than I ever thought. I don't even know if she's coming back. Haven't heard from her since she left. Barely hung around more than an hour, just long enough to make sure I knew where everything was, and to remind me how to clean the fucking bathroom. I really didn't get it. What the big deal was with that. Constantly hosing it down and scrubbing the walls. But I remembered it was the same when I was a kid. Remembered that summer when I was home alone and I went to play in the fields, got covered in mud, and traipsed it back, made a complete mess, left the bathroom covered in dirt, left it in a state that lured her out. I didn't see her getting out on that occasion, just heard a noise in the bathroom later when I went to the toilet, opened the connecting door to check it out, and there she was, flailing around on the floor, licking up the dirt I'd left behind. I can't tell you if I was scared or not, because I don't remember. I don't think I was. And she didn't hurt me. She just kept licking. And I kept watching, rooted to the spot in the open door, until Oba-chan and my mother came home. My mother dragged me away. Oba-chan grabbed a mop and charged into the wet room. I don't know what happened that night. I let my mother convince me I had a fever and was hallucinating. Let her convince me I never saw Akka. But I did. And I hate that I let myself be tricked. If somebody had taken care of her, maybe she wouldn't have ended up so full of hate, in such bad condition. How could you blame her, trapped beneath a bathtub for decades, or longer? Who knows how long she's been there? Ever since Oba-chan inherited this place anyway, in the 60s, long after the war. And yes, the land was still radioactive, but the bomb didn't make Akka. She existed before that, long before. She doesn't talk, and she can't tell me exactly, but I know from my research she's immortal. All yayokai are. They just get forgotten, shut away, alone, lost in limbo, until something explosive rips the veil between worlds and sets them free, free to be kept prisoner somewhere else. But I'm changing that. Ever since I found out she was real, when I stopped cleaning the stupid bathroom for hours every day, like that bitch demanded, scrub the bathtub, hose the walls, mop the floor. That's how they kept her imprisoned. And a couple of days after I stopped doing it, she got out. It was like all those years ago. Went for a piss one night. Heard something moving in there. This time, it didn't surprise me at all. It just made me sad. AKA loves filth. It's what she thrives on. Cleanliness is kryptonite to her. Hygienic conditions, sanitized surfaces. She can't breathe in an environment like that. It isn't fair. You know what else isn't fair? Her full name. Akaname, they call her. Filth liquor. Can you believe it? The indignity. Naming her that just because of her nature? It's like people calling me hideous when my name's Hideo. I don't know why Oba-chan decided to keep her a prisoner. If she'd just taken time to get to know how she works. So what if she bubbles up like sludge from the plug hole? So what if she needs to digest dirt to take form? So what if her saliva is acidic? Let her lick all the dirt she wants, then hose the residue down. It makes her better. Her body. The more filth she consumes, the better it gets. Fully formed. Beautiful. I've seen it now, twice. After she licked Oba-chan clean, and Kenji licked away their dirt, their skin, their organs, licked everything up then swallowed their gore-covered bones. It's amazing what she can do. Doesn't leave a trace. For someone who loves filth, she knows how to leave things spotless. And as long as you stay away from her mouth, you can do anything you want with her, all night, until the straw comes up and she melts and goes back down the pipe. Can you hear her in there? Sounds like something wet and sloppy thrashing around. But it's like I said, she's a bit of a mess at the start. A pile of mush, you could say. But just wait. Wait till she licks all this shit off the floor. You'll see her body grow, and by the time she gets to you, she'll look half human. Those eyes, that hair, those breasts, that long, sinuous, acid-dripping tongue. It'll hurt at first, I won't lie. And seeing your foot dissolve in her mouth will drive you crazy. But the pain won't last. I saw it with Oba-chan and Kenji. By the time she'd devoured one leg and looked like a fully formed girl, they didn't even feel it anymore. Her beauty takes away the pain, and she is beautiful for a time after she's eaten. The most beautiful girl in the world. But you'll have to take my word for that. You'll never see it. She'll make you feel like the most important person in existence, but you're not. I'm the one who feeds her. I'm the one who loves her. I'm the one who holds her through the night, after she's feasted on filth like you and Oba-chan and Kenji and my mother. If she ever comes back, she'll get hers for leaving my Aka to suffer. Aka's my girl, and she's never going to be alone again. Now, I think she can come out. Are you ready to meet her? Here we go, then. Oh yes, there she is. There's my girl. Can you see? Even like this. Isn't she lovely? Hello, my beautiful Aka. Dinner is served. Oh, unholy night. Iceland's winter festivities are a perfect excuse to feast and make merry, and I partake with an insatiable appetite. I adore the endless nights wandering abroad and relish chance encounters with hapless stragglers trudging home. They all laugh when I tell them carol singing's not to my taste, and chuckle when I say choristers are delightful and sweet. But how their mirth dissolves as I envelop them in my cloak and whisper, "What a toothsome treat you are. You're good enough to eat." I despise summer, like all cold-blooded creatures, preferring a catatonic sleep to roasting in the sun. Every autumn, I anticipate the evening when Ingvar disturbs my estivation, and I return to a nocturnal lifestyle. He disinters my casket from the family plot every year during the first week of December. It's a tradition my loyal retainer has followed for years, just like his father, and his father's father, ad infinitum. It's impossible to find reliable help these days. And so, despite Ingvar's poor social skills, I re-employ his services annually. Ingvar obeys my written orders to the letter on the pain of death. If not in this life, then his neck. Thwack, crunch. My mind basks in a dream state when Ingvar invades my solitude, hacking through the icebound earth above. Crake, skreek. I hear the shovel scrape debris off the wooden lid, and his doleful voice murmuring a tuneless refrain. The unsettling melody stirs my clouded mind like a moorland breeze whistling through gnarled branches. Its clashing dissonances offend my refined musical sensibilities and cause my heart to quiver and contract. Lub, dub, lub, dub, lub, dub. My constricted arteries dilate as Ingvar wrenches at the coffin nails with his claw hammer. His frenzied efforts cause minor explosions in the darkness, dusting the threadbare silk lining with clouds of grit. As Ingvar prizes open the ancient pine lid, my sensitive eyeballs roll upwards, avoiding the moon's inquisitive gaze. My rib cage twitches in a violent spasm as wheezing lung sacs inhale clean air. I choke and splutter before coughing out stale fumes that rasp my withered throat like a rusty file. With each heartbeat, blood churns throughout my aching body, carrying oxygen to every cell. It's always the most painful part of my awakening. Pins and needles prickle each desiccated sinew, and every limb screams as it receives life-giving fluid. The blood returns to the heart after delivering oxygen, and my mind explodes with predatory thoughts anew. My throbbing heart sends the blood to lungs that strain hard to collect more air. I reflux and retch a pint of sticky phlegm from deep down. Ingvar is used to this unsightly reaction and tends to the detritus with a clean cloth. His caring touch is delicate and professional, and his face is unflinching. He lacks any sentiment. This is his business. Ingvar had strict instructions prior to my exhumation. He was to source a flask of fresh blood by whatever means necessary. The task never varies, but the source depends whereabouts I resume my existence. We're never in the same town twice, for obvious reasons. He's learned to adapt to my circumstances with undeniable efficiency. Ingvar has my best interests at heart, and he's also on the payroll. This winter season, he's moored our vessel in a quiet northwestern harbor outside Sudavik. It's an unassuming fishing town with a medical center and a venue for blood donors. Once on shore, he disguised himself and liberated a quart from their supply. It's a rich-looking concoction that will suffice for now. However, it's not the same as sinking my teeth into a warm jugular and slurping on the real deal. Ingvar steadies my quivering hands as I raise the glass container to my lips. I close my weary eyelids, and after a few sips, everything calms down. My sweaty palms dry out, and my prune-like fingers appear to elongate as my skin tightens. The sagging flesh under my jaw disappears, and my furrowed brow loses its careworn lines. At last, the throbbing pain behind my eyeballs dissipates, and my labored breathing settles into a regular rhythm. My once erratic heart beat chugs at a steady rate, and the queasiness in my stomach eases after a discharge of rancid gas. My rejuvenation is complete, and I rise from the coffin to assume my full height, like a magnificent butterfly, casting off its shriveled chrysalis and unfurling its wings before flight. I nod at my retainer, and he tips his forelock and bows. I acknowledge his endeavors with a satisfied smile and survey the snowbound nightscape, glistening like an ocean of diamonds under the moon's bashful glow. Ingvar wafts his left hand through the air, shepherding me towards the waiting brougham with his outstretched right arm. Two majestic black drays snort white plumes from flared nostrils beside my handsome carriage. We take our seats as pristine snowflakes descend and settle on the bodywork's polished ebony. It's a fine welcome and a tremendous relief to be undead once more. The sight of my baleful old vehicle cantering through the small coastal town of Sudavik draws little attention. In previous years, the ominous rumble of hooves and creaking coach springs would herald an unfamiliar guest. But the inhabitants have other issues this year. They've entombed themselves within their homes, battened down their pine window shutters, and laced their thresholds with wreaths of protective herbs, ensuring plenty of garlics on hand. It should flatter me they fear the visit of a malevolent nocturnal predator. However, the precautions aren't for my sole benefit. The coronavirus's arrival has influenced behavior, and the government has enforced a lockdown. Ingvar understood there were unusual circumstances this year, but thought it prudent to interrupt my deep slumbers regardless. My initial reaction was one of joy. What better return could I expect than to discover piles of bodies waiting to be devoured? However, it transpires that the Health and Safety Department has issued an edict. Local undertakers are to dispose of the corpses through the crematorium. The local council is determined to sanitize the town and cleanse the region. I hadn't connected the hazy fug lingering above the coastline with the current climate of dread. Sudavik's furnaces are working overtime to dispose of the deceased. The impact on my festive plans is catastrophic. Citizens locked away in their homes until further notice. No bodies languishing on mortuary slabs waiting for morticians, and funerals performed in secrecy with the bereaved attending by Zoom. None of these scenarios bode well for a creature of my particular inclinations. I'll need to redraft Ingvar's commands with caveats that cater to similar events. A do not resuscitate clause should cover matters in the future. As for now, we'll retreat to the mountains, and I'll ponder the options. Iceland's 13 days of celebrations leading up to Christmas are a disaster for all the residents. Children won't be leaving shoes beside their open bedroom windows. There'll be no trolls gifting trick-or-treats this year. The authorities have banned the Yule lads' nightly visits. It's a bleak prospect all round. I have some tough decisions to make as we ascend to my mountaintop fortress. Most years, I'd prowl along local shores, searching for lonesome visitors and lost souls. My spirit descends into a quagmire as I contemplate the prospect of scouring isolated fjords for bilious vagrants and ill-kempt vagabonds. It seems unlikely that I'll quench my thirst this winter. The locals have barricaded themselves in their homes, and according to Ingvar, they're low on stock at the blood bank. As the days trickle past, the wind howls like a wounded banshee, and the ground hardens to rock. The snows gather in drifts, blocking our descent and jeopardizing my strategic movements. Ingvar spends his days grooming the horses, and at night he sips his supplies of Brennivin. Most evenings he passes out from its effects, having buried himself under a mountain of furs. He knows his services are not required during these hard times, despite being primed to chauffeur me down the mountain on a whim. I've endured centuries of this existence. Life is relative, of course. It isn't a life most know. It's punishment for cheating death. Centuries of endless torture in purgatory. I'm cursed to roam forever, fearful of daylight, and all for a few drops of blood. I suppose it could be worse. There's a contagious disease in the vicinity. I guess it'd just be my luck if I contracted the coronavirus, wouldn't it? A year of coughing and wheezing inside my casket is inconceivable. The thought is most unappealing. And so, it's time to call it a night. Ingvar must enter my coffin until the epidemic's over. Maybe my luck will improve next year. Cabin fever. Then the storm broke and was replaced the next morning with a frozen 1880s blue sky. The kind when after the clouds clear, the world shuts down with a blinding but heartless sun, no wind, and dead quiet. Jason and Bill huddled around the cabin's only wood burner. Above them, the pine timbers groaned and complained with the weight of the storm's snow, over 20 feet on the roof. But what dropped their stomach into a mine shaft was the sharp crack about every 10 minutes, a sound like a double barrel going off in the rafters. The cold clenched down on the roof beams. The cabin held in a merciless, ice-cold fist. It was not unknown for a collapsed cabin to be found in the spring, the dead still frozen under the rubble, a beast with a blood-froze beard, Bill mumbled out loud to himself, feeding logs to the wood burner. He'd almost lost Jason the night before. The storm outside had been ghost white and howling a blow. He had worried Jason would lose the rope he'd strung to the outhouse, 60 feet from the cabin. He knew from experience, men lose their way, only to be found in the spring thaw. So when Jason had slammed the pine door and come back in, shaking and terrified, saying he barely made it back, and talking about his lungs seared out from the cold, he had sighed in relief. But when he'd calmed down later, Jason said, "There's something out there, Bill. I could feel it looking at me. I swear I saw eyes in the dark, red eyes, and a growl." Provisions were low, so for supper, the only meal that day, Bill dished out steaming black beans, only a sourdough biscuit on the side. Bill, chicken. Bill, they called him, liked to talk when he was serving food, and fancied himself a philosopher, a cowboy philosopher, although his ranching days were well over. He was 50, which is old in the mountains, but a lot about Bill was still adventurous with his red kerchief, leather chaps he wore like skin, and his Stetson, which he rarely took off. As he dished out the food, he declared, "The Shoshone have 100 words for snow, Jason. Snow that grows out of the ground. A hoary frost sparkling with tiny ice fingers reaching for the sun. Snow that forms a crust when the top melts some and then freezes back up, which might break your leg in a post hole. And snow that lives in the worst cold and wraps itself in the body of a wolf and steals your soul. Like now. Bill, it's 60 below, and I don't feel much like talking about the cold." "I understand, son," Bill said, and took Jason's empty tin plate away. Later that night, Bill sat by the burner, the flame reflected on his weathered face, high cheekbones, and full lips. A handsome man, his wife had said. He stroked the scar from the edge of his eye to the back of his chin. A scuffle with Texas rough Civil War vets in '72, calling him half-breed in the street. But I know this cold is different, he thought. It's tougher with Jason. The fire held his eyes on the yellow-blue flame for a long while, the wood humming and spitting, the smoke smelling of pine sap. "Did you swear you wouldn't take on caring about another?" he asked himself. "Did you?" "Yes. After the sickness, I did. And now you're caring about this Jason. And that's why you're scared? You're getting hot." Bill kept feeding the fire, but couldn't help thinking about death. For him, a white wolf in his dreams, with a blooded snout, a red-eyed beast scratching to get in. The next morning, the Olson party beat on the door. Finding the cabin must have taken some luck. Dick Olson, his wife Martha, their daughter Susan, and their young boy, Joey. They filled the cabin once inside. Mr. Olson was near done. Living with his feet black from the frostbite, he could still hobble, but Bill had him put one foot in cold water. It began bleeding, and he wrapped it up. Jason asked Bill about the feet in the kitchen, and Bill talked low, so the party wouldn't hear. You can tell from his sagging eyes the West has whipped him, Jason. If you notice, his eyeballs are skittering like a mare beat too much. Once broke like that, too broke, a horse won't come back to anything worth working. Mr. Olson has the no blinks, and I've seen it in the mines. You best stay clear when you run up on a man like that. Next thing you know, you'll be staring too far away yourself. Their daughter, Susan, did not have the no blinks, Jason thought. Just with a sneak peek, he could see she was the most beautiful creature he'd ever put eyes on. Once she unwrapped from the weather, her long hair alone shone like some kind of goddess, he guessed. The blonde let loose, soft and shimmering. She made him think of a gazelle he saw once up in the high country. It stood with its white belly and golden hide, then ran off as light as air. The god's creature moved like grace itself, but Susan, just sitting there, was better. No, sir. You cannot chance more than a sneak peek when you run into a sight like that. He kept his eyes on the burner and was glad when the Olson party carved out a private area off to the side, blankets making a wall of sorts. Bill made some supper for all six, including himself. The last of the salt ham, hardtack, and black beans. Everyone silent around the pine table. Bill didn't talk much around strangers at first. Some said likely due to him being a half-Bannock Indian. But once the diners settled in, the boy Joey couldn't get enough and threw questions at Bill like a scattergun. How long you been up here? Why do they call you Chicken Bill? And where'd you get that scar on your cheek? Bill gave short answers, but his eyes smiled talking to the boy. He explained the Galena cabin was the way station for the Stanley to Ketchum route, an overnight midpoint on the 60-mile run. Jason was a postal officer and would ski the 60 miles on 8-foot board skis, the trail too narrow for a wagon and too steep for a horse. Jason listened in, but also knew Bill had lost both his wife and son to cholera and sparked up around children. The boy asked, "Why don't you wear a gun?" Bill said, "I'm done with guns, young man. Guns mostly don't ever work out like you expect." Joey's eyes grew into silver dollars. "Did you ever kill anybody?" The table went quiet, and Bill said, "Excuse me. Jason and I have to clean up. Come on, Jason." As he rose, his eyes were glistening, and Jason remembered Bill didn't like to talk about guns and killing. Bill and Jason were in the kitchen when Mr. Olson came limping in. He was dodging around like he had something to say, but couldn't. Finally, he said, "Joe's mother feels... Well, don't talk to our son," she says. Bill said, "Sure, no problem." He took a deep breath and let it out. "You'll always be an outsider, looked at as an outcast by your own people, a savage Indian by the other." Jason felt bad for Bill, but the truth was, he thought there was nothing he could do about it anyway. The next day, the Dawson brothers pounded on the door. After coming in, they spread out like it was natural to position themselves for a gunfight. The one in the middle was Cliff, the oldest brother. He scanned the room, his eyes not missing a thing, running over Jason and Bill like bacon, greasy fingers, assessing if they were a threat. He then stopped on Mrs. Olson. "You get lost out of Pocatello? Standing me up in Ketchum seem right to you?" Slumped down at the table like a man giving up, Mr. Olson stared at his foot wrapped in the bloody rag. He glanced at his wife, but she saddled up to Cliff, put her face close to his, and with a sweet voice Jason hadn't heard before, brushed her lips up against his right ear. "I'd come back for you, Cliff. You know that." Cliff shoved her off rough and put his head back and laughed. A mean sound, more coyote bark than laugh. He said, "I guess I know when I been had, you viper." He nodded to Mr. Olson at the table. "Sorry, Dick. You can have her back now." Mrs. Olson shot a look at her husband. He was slumped at the table, his hands shaking while covering his face, his elbows on the yellow pine planks. The smaller brother came out from behind the blankets. He threw a black carpet bag down on the floor. Cliff kneeled and opened it up. The bag was full of money, bundles of cash. Mr. Olson looked up. His eyes misted, yellow-red. "Our future Martha. You wanted Oregon. There it lies. You didn't count on the snow." And looking at his feet, "Much less this damn freeze." Grabbing the bloody rag off his dead foot, he threw it at his wife, which she knocked away just before it hit her face. Mrs. Olson hesitated, then lunged toward her husband, her eyes harsh, her face tight. With a harsh whisper, she spit each word like venom. "Yes, the storm and the damn freeze, you fool. You're an old fool, the worst kind. You know that? You only see what you want." Mr. Olson glared back at her, but she stared him down. Cliff packed up the bag and threw it to the third brother near the window, then turned to Mrs. Olson. He pointed his gloved finger at her and narrowed his eyes, laughing through his sneer. "It's true. He don't see you, Martha, but I do." And then he cocked his face at Mr. Olson like he remembered something. But being Indian agent at Pocatello has its advantages for you and Martha, don't it, Dick? I guess the tribes will miss it none, not knowing it was theirs to begin with. Mr. Olson reared up at the table, wincing when he stood on his bare black foot. His face twisted up like being covered with fire. He stumbled out a derringer from his inside vest pocket and aimed it at Cliff. But Cliff was fast, quick with his gun. In the tight cabin, the shot rang out like the screaming wrath of God. Mr. Olson, thrown near off both feet, his back smacking hard against the pine wall, with his chest a bloody hole, he slid to the floor, and his boy Joey ran to the body, and Susan held her brother, the son, daughter, and dead man lying together. The Dawson men soon grouped everyone to the side of the cabin, while one brother held a gun. They searched for weapons and collected both the derringer and a shotgun found in the kitchen. The smaller brother filled a sack with the remaining food. Mrs. Olson grabbed Cliff's arm, holding him from turning away, and said, "Please forgive me, baby." Cliff threw her off and laughed, shoving her toward the table. Leaning into the table, Mrs. Olson stayed dead still as she stared at the wall. Cliff, behind her, spoke firm, like he wanted the pain to sink in. "You ain't worth much. Hardly worth feeding Martha. But I'll be taking you, the boy, and especially Susan, up north to the renegades. They'll make use of you in the camps, but your daughter and boy Martha, they'll bring prime dollar." Mrs. Olson's hands gripped white on the table. The other two brothers drew their guns after hearing Cliff. In a short time, Jason and Bill stood at the cabin door, while mounted up in front of them in the bright sun and the dry pine air were the three brothers, but also Mrs. Olson, the boy Joey, and Susan on the last remaining horses, all tied to saddle horns. The Dawson brothers turned and broke trail, the snow pushing up above the horses' bellies, the hooves rising high to punch through the clean white, the pine hanging heavy with fresh snow. They were soon out of sight. Without a word, Bill pushed through the deep snow to the shed. He dragged the door open, hitting it with his shoulder, finally making his way in. After the sound of rummaging, he came out. Strapped on his side was a Colt .45 rig, low on his hip, outlaw style. He said, "I got the weapon, but not the means. We need a horse, Jason." The shed door was still open, and Jason stuck his head in. "You're right, we don't have a horse. I've got an idea, though, for something else." Jason and Bill took 2 pairs of board skis and pushed through the snow 100 yards to the top of Galena Ridge. The near cliff fell off the side of the mountain. If they could ski it, and Jason couldn't guess how, but if they could, they'd cut off the Dawsons 2 miles away, where they came out the bottom of the switchbacks. they had to take the chance. Jason strapped both himself and Bill into the skis where they needed to drop off. Bill stared off the edge, wide-eyed. He grabbed Jason's arm, nervous as all get out. Jason had never seen him panicked like that, gaping over the edge like a little boy. He choked it out. "I need to tell you. I could had your postman job, Jason, but it required me to ski. Turned it down, and hell. That's why they started calling me Chicken Bill." Jason laughed to look at him. "Hell yourself, Bill. No chicken about it. It ain't nothing," he lied. "Let's go." They pushed off. The skis fell through air, and Jason sidestepped to turn as he hit the bank. The snow flowed like a heaven's mist over their heads. Jason's skis swooping back and forth, a fine curve on the fresh snow, the cold flakes stinging his face. They weren't skiing, but flying. Bill just closed his eyes and took a straight shot. Together, they leveled out on the basin. The riders slowly came out of the trees. The horses were struggling to lift their hooves in the deep snow, tired and pushed too hard. The younger brother was the first to notice Bill standing 50 yards ahead. Jason could tell Cliff, then saw Bill also, and was moving in position, turning side saddle so he could draw. As Cliff angled, Bill crouched in the snow. And when the two brothers pulled their sidearms, Bill drew in response, his gun light in his hand, like he was flicking his finger. He knocked the two younger brothers off their horses like nothing, ducks in a chute. Bill then took aim at Cliff with both hands, holding the revolver for the distance, but stopped. Mrs. Olson's horse crossed the path. The more Bill moved to get an aim, the more Mrs. Olson got in the way. "Shoot, damn it. Just shoot!" Bill blew air, exasperated. He raised his gun straight up and fired into the sky. This was the break Cliff was looking for. He leaned out, drew on Bill, and took him down with a blast of 3 shots. Cliff could shoot. Bill fell in front of Jason in the cold. As death approached, Bill didn't feel scared, but settled. A peace came over him. "But you're leaving Jason," he thought. "You need to tell him before you go." Leaning close, Jason said, "What, Bill? What is it?" He knew Bill was dying. "You can do it, Jason. You're a far better man than you think, son." Bill then closed his eyes. A warmth moved over Jason that he couldn't explain. He suddenly realized Bill was the closest thing to a father he'd ever had, and it was right then. Jason knew he was done with "can't do anything about it anyway," and it was right then he was done with the holding back, and he had to try. Feeling the heavy weight of the cold steel Colt in his hand, he stood up slowly and held the weapon down by his side. Cliff flanked him, staying side-saddled, with a broad grin on his face in the bright cold. moving to get the sun behind him. "Give it a try, boy," he said, and holstered his weapon. "When you're ready." And he angled his horse as he moved, his hand hovering on the gun handle. Jason lifted his arm, and Cliff's gun exploded in his hand. Jason never saw him draw. He was so fast. The slug hit him in the shoulder and threw Jason's aim. He fell to the ground, and Cliff was soon above him, dismounted, and kicking the colt away. Jason looked down Cliff's gun barrel and felt his chest pounding. He knew the bullet was coming, and his only thought was hoping it didn't hurt. A quick ending, a snarling cut the cold air before Jason saw a white-shaped animal leap for Cliff, who fought the snapping jaws while he writhed on the snow, holding the white, wolf-like thing off his face. Cliff then screamed in terror. The animal slashed at him and dug in, ripping his throat out, then stuck its snout into the wound. Jason turned away, thinking he was next, but soon caught sight of the wolf flashing in the trees. An albino, pure white. He lost sight of the animal in the green pine, the needles covered in ice, crystals on the trees. VISE. News Real Talk. The art of soul swapping. New research proposes a radical solution for the estimated 13 million people who unwittingly lost their souls in last year's Black Friday mishap. While hell isn't offering refunds anytime soon, a soul swap isn't out of the question, says Sam Ackerman, sole author on the study and CEO of Exosouls. His paper, titled Devilish Details, a sparse Bayesian learning framework for enhancing the Exosouls algorithm, is published this week in Chaos, a non-linear journal of translational science. In it, Ackerman claims to have unraveled the 2-for-1 soul swap terms and conditions of the Philadelphia Screamer. He then introduces a machine learning model designed to identify likely victims who have yet to come forward, as well as predict the likelihood of unsouled souls going to hell anyway. Ackerman goes on to suggest that when combined with his proprietary Exosouls algorithm, this novel framework can accurately pair last year's Black Friday victims with unsouled, hellbound souls, a finding that could give hope to millions. Vice's own Brett Love spoke with Ackerman while putting his updated soul swap theory to the test in real time. This interview has not been edited for clarity or length because hard-hitting journalism has no filters. Q&A with Brett Love and Sam Ackerman. Brett Love: so, how about you tell me why I'm stuck in Philadelphia traffic with a conch shell in my front seat? Sam Ackerman: great, right to the point. So, that conch shell is there to help you hear the screams of the damned. Cupping your hands to your ears is also an option. but that's more prone to error. I don't know if I like the sound of that. No one does. Now, as for the Philadelphia traffic, we need a bit more context for that one. You remember last year when the real burning man who screams eternal, or simply the Philadelphia Screamer. Most people just call him Phil now. Sure, let's call him Phil. Anyway, after Phil showed up last year, screaming and burning and chained to the William Penn statue atop Philadelphia's City Hall with that Black Friday offer flaming across his torso, people were understandably curious. So, of course, someone flies a drone up there to get a closer look at this giant chained to the Will Penn statue. And forgive me for the recap, but let's not forget how incredible that moment was and still is today. I mean, he's bound there, like Prometheus, except instead of eagles tearing out his liver only for it to regrow, there's a flaming message that burns to life again and again, letter by letter, from neck to navel. It's Hell's version of a flashing neon sign, and it says, 2 souls take the place of one in Black Friday's shadow. Make your wish known, and they shall pay the price. Right. And who can blame people for thinking it's your classic 2-for-1 Black Friday deal? Exactly. Last year's tragic miscalculation really just came down to otherwise honest folk simply hoping to cheat Satan on one day of the year with no consequences whatsoever. They thought they could make their wildest wish come true while sacrificing the souls of 2 of their worst enemies. When you think about it, the choice of holiday makes perfect sense too. Halloween is too on the nose, and Christmas is off limits. But Thanksgiving is, well, it's a gobbledygook of whitewashed genocide and glorified capitalism. So why wouldn't Satan want to piggyback on that? Just look, and you'll find him in the eyes of crazed consumers everywhere, in that Black Friday aftermath of filth left behind by the world's worst holiday. Wow. You really hate Thanksgiving. What about cranberry sauce? You'll cut out that last part, right? I don't want to turn off potential ExoSouls clients, sure. But you still haven't told me why I'm stuck in Philly traffic this Black Friday. Oh, right. So we already covered Phil, and the rest comes down to word origin. Before Black Friday found its way into the common parlance, it was used by Philadelphia traffic cops who were fed up with the crowds after Thanksgiving. This was back in the 1960s, so it all comes down to a simple misunderstanding. And hell probably wasn't trying to be nefarious here. I mean, they sent their screaming giant to Philadelphia, after all. They just thought that's where Black Friday applied. So they thought it was still 1960-something, even though Phil arrived in 2022. You're talking about relativity and time dilation. right? Yes. No. Not really. Listen. The theory of special relativity is a wonderful lens for examining the wonders of the universe, but it likely holds no meaning in hell. Perhaps whoever sent Phil is forced to experience a distorted sense of time passing on Earth to further highlight their own eternity in hell. A form of time torture, if you will. But that's just speculation, something that future research could explore. Regardless, my current research strongly suggests that Hell's Black Friday deal only applies to Philadelphia traffic. What do you mean by suggests? I mean, I'm about to test your soul swap theory here, so you're sure, right? Please don't call it swap. I never mention that term once in my paper, and I don't know why. The media keeps throwing it out there. This isn't the movie Freaky Friday. We're not switching souls or bodies or anything like that. Say exchange if you must, but it's in the company name, Exo Souls, with exo meaning external and souls meaning plural. It's a simple 2-for-1 exchange, and at no point do you swap souls with anyone else. Now, do you have the Exo Souls app installed on your phone, Brett? Yeah, but I'm asking if you're sure your soul swap. Is your theory correct? Listen, there are 1,000 different researchers giving 1,000 different reasons for last year's Black Friday mishap. They blame it on wildly irresponsible statistics, poor reading skills, TikTok trends, rising obesity rates, or excess levels of tryptophan. But not one has demonstrated as high a degree of correlation as I have. I'm sure you've already read the paper, but let me offer a quick recap for those who haven't. We know for a fact that people who have toned their souls see themselves with their eyes sewn shut every time they look in a mirror, while most hell-bound people don't advertise that about themselves. We also know that there was a spike in self-reported eyes sewn shut sightings last year, likely due to outrage over misinterpreting Hell's Black Friday offer. Now, I used those reports as a starting point for constructing my sparse Bayesian learning framework while accounting for normal levels of dishonesty. In addition to identifying unreported victims, my model also identifies those with unsold souls who have high hell-bound risk. However, the truly surprising finding comes when looking at the distribution of likely victims. It's a fairly regular distribution. That is, it's standard for places other than the city of brotherly love. More specifically, for places devoid of Philly traffic. What I'm saying is high-traffic Philadelphia areas are almost blank spots on that distribution map of likely victims from last year's Black Friday mishap. That's where people were able to take advantage of Hell's 2-for-1 offer, because that's the area that corresponds to Hell's definition of Black Friday. It's an incredibly strong correlation. And that's why you're stuck in Philly traffic this Black Friday, Brett. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. Maybe you could give a quick refresher on correlation versus causation. No, we don't want to risk traffic clearing up on us. Just Google ice cream drowning deaths after the interview. So, without further ado, could you please open the ExoSouls app, Brett? First, I've got to ask, why are we doing this over the phone? Why wouldn't you agree to a face-to-face interview? Selling one's soul can't be done in company. If you open the app, I'll guide you through it. Okay, app is open. Hey, nice interface. Kind of like Twitter, with less hate speech. And I just looked in the rear view mirror. I can say with relief that the eyes of my reflection aren't sewn shut. Well, we haven't done anything yet. To verify, can you tell me how many active users you see in the ExoSouls app? I see 437. Now it's 443. Hang on. Shouldn't the numbers be doubling with the 2-for-1 soul swap? Good. I see those same numbers. And remember, it's not a swap. The numbers aren't doubling for a couple reasons. First, not everyone is selling their souls simultaneously. Second, a number of users regain their souls with each transaction. Obviously, the total number of souls sold must increase over time, which is great for ExoSouls in terms of active users. But wait, you said some users regain their souls? Could you explain? You know it's reversible, right? It's in my chaos paper. I even mention it in the abstract. Sure, yeah, I know. But it may be worth explaining for the sake of the interview. Okay, traffic is looking steady, so I'll give a quick example. Hell's Black Friday 2-for-1 offer requires 3 souls. 1 soul to take advantage of the offer, and 2 more souls to pay the price. So, let's call the souls A, B, and C, and say they're all stuck in Philadelphia traffic. Imagine that A makes its soul-selling wish, which marks souls B and C as bound for hell when their time on earth is done. Now, say B, whose soul has already been sold, still wants to take advantage of the 2-for-1 offer. Hell owns B, but Hell doesn't care about individuals. Hell's goal is to simply gather as many souls as possible, so it would gladly trade B for 2 unclaimed souls. Soul A is still unclaimed, but we need another unclaimed soul to make B's transaction possible. That's where Soul D comes in. If Souls A and D reach out to Hell and offer their souls in place of B's, Hell can't refuse. Sure, it loses a soul, but it also gains 2. And Hell must grant B a wish for the 2-to-1 offer to still hold true. Within this scenario, the first wish led to 2 hell-bound souls, while the second wish results in a total of 3 hell-bound souls within the group. You can see that the number didn't double in this instance. Of course, that number could easily keep doubling if everyone keeps making the selfish decision. But that's the beauty of the ExoSouls app. Its algorithm was already working to balance mutual and self-interests. But this latest enhancement connects Black Friday victims with likely hellbound to boost cooperation and user engagement. Does that answer your reversibility question, Brett? Yeah. And then some. But I mean that in a good way. You have me convinced. How do I get started? Let's see. The algorithm wants you to sell your soul in the traditional way first. That means no taking advantage of the 2-for-1 offer just yet. After that, ExoSouls will pair you with 2 unclaimed souls, so you can regain your soul. Wow, I hesitate to use the word luck, but this is a rare instance in my experience. At the risk of sounding redundant, I'd even go so far as to say ultra rare. Brett, you get to make 2 incredible, near back-to-back wishes and still keep your soul this Black Friday. Oh man, I haven't thought about what I want. What do I click to make it happen? Haha, you don't click anything. ExoSouls points you to the best possible outcome. But this next part is low-tech, a tried-and-true method as old as mankind itself. First, what you want to do is pick up that conch shell from the passenger seat and hold it to your ear. Then, I want you to listen for the screams of the damned. Okay? I've got you on speakerphone and the conch shell to my ear. Do you hear the screams yet, Brett? Maybe. But that could just be Phil on top of City Hall. I think he's nearby. Forget about Phil. Think about the worst moment of your life. Relive it. Imagine that conch shell is a calcified ear that can hear your innermost thoughts. Whoa, I hear it. Jesus Christ. Keep that shell to you ear, Brett. Now tell me, how does traffic look? Oh God. Focus, Brett. How's traffic? Okay. It's nearly at a standstill. Good. Now, I want you to close your eyes nearly all the way until you're looking through your eyelashes. Then, stare at your reflection in the rear-view mirror. Are you doing it? Yes. But I don't like this anymore. Don't stop. You're nearly there. Promise your soul for your heart's desire. I don't know what I want. Just wish for the first thing on your mind. There are no wrong answers here, Brett. If it's in hell's power to grant it, you'll get your wish. Oh man, I did it. The shell is silent and... oh God, that's awful. What do you see? I see my own eyes sewn shut in the mirror. How is that possible? Yeah, no one ever gets used to it. But the good news is I'm working on augmented reality glasses to add eyes to mirrors for those who've sold their souls. And the even better news is you've managed to successfully sell your soul. Now, ExoSouls should find a pair of unclaimed souls for you soon here. We're up to 643 active users, So maybe some are right next to you in traffic while we wait. And if you don't mind me asking, what was your wish? Well, it's kind of silly, but it was the first thing that came to mind. I wished for the traffic to clear up, and it's already moving at normal speed. Amazing. Although I guess I kind of wasted my first wish. You did a lot more than that. Do you somehow not understand words? For Christ's sake. You asked me twice why you were stuck in Philadelphia traffic. Shit. Can we try again next year? Well, what other option does everyone else have? Except for you, Brett. Sorry, but the ExoSoul's algorithm has banned you from the app. Good luck and goodbye.